Once upon a time, in a quiet village surrounded by meadows and winding rivers, there lived a gentle young girl named Cinderella. Her heart was kind, her spirit patient, and her smile as warm as the sunlight that touched the village rooftops each morning. Yet, despite her goodness, her life was marked by hardship and sorrow. Cinderella's mother had passed away when she was still very young, leaving behind memories of tender care and words of comfort. Her father, seeking companionship, later married a woman with 2 daughters. At first, Cinderella hoped that this new family would bring harmony and love. She imagined laughter in the halls, shared meals filled with joy, and the warmth of sisterly affection. But soon, she discovered that her stepmother's heart was cold, and that her stepsisters were spoiled and unkind. Each day became a trial. Cinderella was given endless tasks, scrubbing the floors until they shone, tending the fire until her hands grew rough, and preparing every meal while her stepsisters rested in their fine gowns. While they admired their reflection in polished mirrors and adorned themselves with ribbons and pearls, Cinderella wore a single faded dress and shoes that were worn thin. Her only companions were the birds perched outside the window and the small creatures that scurried about the house, who seemed to sense her gentle spirit. Despite the cruelty she endured, Cinderella never allowed bitterness to enter her heart. She moved through her tasks with quiet grace, humming softly as she worked. Her songs carried a sweetness that filled even the most shadowed corners of the house, like a candle's glow pushing away darkness. To those who listened carefully, her voice was a reminder that kindness could survive even in the hardest places. One morning, the quiet rhythm of the village was broken by the sound of hooves and the gleam of royal banners. A messenger from the palace arrived, carrying a golden letter sealed with a bright ribbon. The king had declared that a grand ball would be held in honor of the prince, who wished to find a bride among the maidens of the land. Excitement spread like wildfire. In every home, mothers prepared their daughters, and seamstresses worked tirelessly on gowns. In Cinderella's household, the stepsisters squealed with delight at the thought of dancing in the palace halls. The stepmother, ever ambitious, encouraged their dreams, seeing the ball as a chance to secure wealth and influence. For Cinderella, the news stirred a longing deep in her heart. She imagined the palace lights glowing against the night sky, the music drifting through the air, and the chance for just one evening to step out of her life of labor and into a world of beauty. Yet her hopes were quickly dashed. The stepmother scorned the very idea that a girl in rags could attend such an event. Instead, she ordered Cinderella to stay behind, burdened with extra chores, while the others prepared for their evening of splendor. On the night of the ball, Cinderella assisted her stepsisters with quiet patience. She laced their gowns, adjusted their sashes, and brushed their hair until it gleamed, all without a word of complaint. When at last their carriage rolled away and the house fell silent, Cinderella sat alone by the fireplace. Her hands, weary from work, rested in her lap, and tears welled in her eyes. For the first time, she allowed herself to grieve the life denied to her. In that moment of despair, something extraordinary happened. A warm light filled the room, soft at first, then bright and shimmering, as though the stars themselves had descended into the house. Out of this light appeared a graceful woman, whose presence radiated comfort and wonder. She was no ordinary visitor, but a fairy godmother, drawn by the purity of Cinderella's heart. With a touch of her wand, the fairy godmother transformed the ordinary into the extraordinary. A humble pumpkin turned into a magnificent golden carriage. Small mice became elegant white horses. A lizard was shaped into a dignified coachman. Finally, with a final sweep of magic, Cinderella's rags were replaced by a gown of breathtaking beauty, shimmering with silver and blue. Upon her feet appeared glass slippers, delicate and radiant, reflecting the starlight like crystal. The fairy godmother's magic, however, came with a condition. When the clock struck midnight, the enchantment would fade, returning everything to its ordinary form. Grateful and filled with joy, Cinderella stepped into the carriage, her heart pounding with anticipation. The palace that evening glittered like a jewel. Candles lit the grand halls, music filled the air, and laughter echoed against marble walls. When Cinderella entered, a hush fell over the crowd. Her beauty and grace were unlike anything they had ever seen. Even her stepsisters, who did not recognize her, watched in awe. The prince himself, captivated at once, stepped forward to greet her. Together, they moved across the dance floor, their steps in perfect harmony, as though they had known each other all their lives. Time seemed to disappear as they danced beneath the chandeliers, surrounded by admiration and wonder. But time, relentless and unforgiving, soon caught up with her. As the first chime of midnight rang through the hall, Cinderella's joy turned to alarm. She fled from the palace, rushing down the grand staircase, her glass slippers striking the stone steps. In her haste, one slipper slipped from her foot, yet she dared not stop. By the time the 12th chime echoed, the magic vanished. The carriage returned to a pumpkin, the horses to mice, and the gown to the faded dress she wore each day. Only one slipper remained, glistening in her hand like proof of a dream. The next morning, the kingdom buzzed with excitement. The prince, determined to find the mysterious maiden, announced that he would marry the one whose foot fit the lost glass slipper. Messengers carried the delicate shoe across the land, visiting every household. At Cinderella's home, the stepsisters eagerly attempted to force their feet into the slipper, but no matter how they tried, it would not fit. Finally, Cinderella, quiet and unnoticed, stepped forward. To the shock of all, the slipper slid onto her foot, as though it had been made only for her. In that instant, her fairy godmother reappeared, and with another touch of her wand, Cinderella's rags transformed once again into the radiant gown of the ball. The truth could no longer be hidden. The prince, arriving soon after, recognized her at once. Joy lit his face, for he had found the girl who had captured his heart. With grace and serenity, Cinderella accepted the new chapter that awaited her. Her wedding was celebrated across the land, with feasts and music that echoed for days. Yet what made Cinderella's story truly remarkable was not the palace or the crown, but the spirit she carried with her. Even after she became a princess, she remained kind to those who had wronged her, offering forgiveness, rather than punishment. Her gentleness softened even the hearts of her stepsisters, who grew to respect her. And so, Cinderella's tale became one told from village to village, a story of patience, kindness, and the belief that even in the darkest moments, light can appear. She and the prince lived happily ever after, their love shining like the stars above the kingdom.